Now, conservation groups say that a golden eagle has died after flying into one in Dumfries and Galloway. Sparky was just 3 years old, was under the watchful gaze of the South of Scotland Golden Eagle Project, who are working to increase Scotland's golden eagle population. They said that they were devastated by Sparky's death, and while it is the first recorded incident of its kind, studies suggest that tens of thousands of birds are killed by wind turbines every year in the UK. So, should we just get rid of them? It's thought that they're not actually the most effective renewable energy source, and many think they're a bit of an eyesore. So give us a call. 0207 862 2222 is the number. Emily, do we get rid of wind turbines?
No, and I'm really sorry for Sparky, RIP, and I'm sorry for birds, but no, they are a very important source of renewable energy. Obviously, we are a windy isle. We do have a lot of renewable energy that comes from wind. Tide is probably our biggest source of renewable energy, because obviously we don't have a huge amount of sun here in the UK, but they are an important part of the makeup, I think, in our green energy provision. And, you know, I think it's worth noting that 55 million birds are killed by domestic cats in the UK. So, you know,
not lovely eagles, though.
Well, no, that's true.
Endangered.
I'd like to see a domestic cat try and take down a golden eagle. But probably I think the cat might come off worse. But I think...
But then that's just nature.
Birds are also... Well, domestic cats aren't nature. They're not. I mean, that's not. They're domestic animals aren't.
I see your argument there.
A wild cat maybe up in Scotland, yes, but not a domestic cat. That's an active human choice. And, you know, obviously there are, you know, aeroplanes. Some birds fly into aeroplanes. That's obviously, you know...
And road...
yeah, roads,
cars,
like into cars
vehicles,
and stuff.
absolutely.
And so I think that estimates suggest apparently that between 10,000 and 100,000 birds are killed by turbine blades annually in the UK. But
so
that's
you're
still
happy with that sacrifice?
I'm happy with that sacrifice. Well, not happy. I love birds.
Yeah.
I feed them in my garden.
But on the balance of...
On the balance of...
good and bad. Lynn, how do you feel about...
I go with your first point. I don't think we generate enough energy from these eyesores. I think they're a huge stain on the countryside. I think they're hideous. Like, when you drive past them, they're great, big, huge, white eyesores, like I said. And I thought to myself, why do they have to be white? Is that something that it has to be to generate a bit more wind? Because why can't you make them a sort of toned down green or brown?
I actually don't know, but I read somewhere that one of the ways you can use to mitigate the amount of birds that die because of wind turbines is by painting the spokes black. The propellers, thank you. Black, and I have no idea how that works. So maybe changing the colour in general, although I think white to black may not be what you were after. You were after a more camel colour.
Sage green.
Sage green or something.
Yes. In France, they disguise telegraph poles as palm trees or as actual trees.
I love that.
And actually, I thought that was I know.
Can you disguise it? Are they very good to
Yes, one of those mobile phone transmitters. They disguised them as palm trees. I thought that was brilliant. Well,
all right, maybe we could have palm trees all over the country then. We'll never know the difference. Yeah. I do want to hear your thoughts on this after the break. Do you think we should get rid of wind turbines after an eagle was killed by one? 0207 862 2222 is the number we'll see after this. But now we're going back to wind turbines. An eagle was killed by one, so do we need to axe them? Give us a call, 0207 862 2222, and we'll speak to you in just a moment. I'm going to speak to now Polly Bramham from Bird World, the UK's largest bird park. Polly, I mean, you have an invested interest in birds, that would make sense. Do you think we need to axe all wind turbines because one eagle has been killed?
No, fundamentally, definitely not. Wind turbines are a fantastic source of alternative energy and green energy, and it's really important that we do explore all these avenues, and it's the collaborative effort of all these different energy sources. And yes, it is extremely sad to lose this eagle, but we lose birds daily in the thousands, tens of thousands, due to so many other things, particularly the likes of climate change. And so we have to consider all of these factors and definitely look into these alternative energy sources. OK,
so alternative energy sources are one option. If we're going to keep the wind turbines, is there anything that we can do to make them safer for birds, other than put a big net around them?
Well, there's all sorts of research. When you look at how they've progressed so much since the first wind turbines were put up so many years ago, and it's the technology has improved vastly, and it's just making sure that we don't ignore the research and all the progress that is made in all of the areas around the wind turbines. So we're looking at where they're positioned, and of course that's in open areas, it's the point of the wind turbine. But whether this is also impacting the habitats where our birds are needing to be nesting or perhaps travelling through on migration routes. So it's looking at where they are and how they're positioned. There's loads of research into, you mentioned the colour of the propellers, and whether that helps to reduce the impact. And of course, you've got to look at whether changing the colour is going to reduce the effectiveness of the technology as well. You look at airports and how many measures and steps they take to keep runways clear of birds, and they've got a fantastic record on reducing collisions. And of course, that research has been going on a lot longer. So it's just making sure that we are listening to the experts in their fields and people who know what these mitigation measures could be, what we could explore, and being open to all the different areas that we can utilise them, because the habitats are different across, you look across the UK and the multitude of habitats that we have and where these wind turbines are found, and therefore being pretty bespoke to those areas and making sure that we know what's going on.
Polly, can I just ask a quick question? When companies set up wind turbines, because obviously you could, if you've got a lot of land, you can set up your own, but when companies or power energy companies set up turbines, do they consult people like Birdworld or, academic studies about where best to site them? Or is there any legislation in place to say that they do have to take account of the animal
surrounding
environment?
area,
yeah.
Hugely important, yes. Like any of these projects, there's a massive amount of legislation that comes with them. And of course, that comes as well as for the property owners that are enabling these wind turbines to be built. Birdworld ourselves, we wouldn't be consulted. That's not our role. But I can say that some of the birds that we have in our collection have formed part of the research that goes into looking at the visual fields of different species of bird, looking at this research that isn't done by Birdworld but involves our birds. It goes towards advising the likes of the wind turbine companies and the landowners onto what effect this is having, and you can be really species specific. So if you're looking at an area where perhaps the curlew are breeding, or that's their foraging ground, and that's a really important species for the UK, looking at their as a species their visual field and therefore what you can do to your turbines in that area, and that might affect the height of the turbines, the length of the propellers, the colour, how they're angled, all of those things. So yes, loads of research goes on, and I'm happy to be a part of it.
Pam, brilliant. Listen, thank you very much. That's also sounding very like a bit of common sense is involved in that. Polly Bramham from Birdworld there, thank you for your time. We're going to take some calls on this now. So we just need more research, essentially. Janice from Essex, what's your thoughts?
Hi, Sean.
Hi.
Look lovely as ever.
Oh, thank you. I'm sure you do too.
Yes.
I just can't see you.
Oh, I phone you when I phone you when I get really emotional about something.
Okay, so you're emotional about wind
doing my head in
turbines.
because they're not being truthful.
Who?
We had 5 days last week, no wind. It was 21%. What are you going to do when the whole country's got pylons, wind farms and solar panels? So in Scotland, most beautiful place in the world, by the way, Wind Scotland's got all these solar panels. Who's going to get out there and scrape the snow off? Is that where all our green jobs are coming from?
Do you know what? Maybe. We think the robots are coming to take all our jobs, but actually that's where they might just pop up. So, Janice, your problem is with wind turbines in general, not just the fact that they're killing birds.
Killing marine life.
That's
you had
offshore.
70 whales beach a few weeks ago.
Okay, Janice,
It's upsetting their sonar.
Oh, they're upsetting their sonar. I wasn't sure about that. You mean when the explosions happen so that they can put them in place in the seabed? I remember Joanna Lumley coming on the show and discussing exactly that. Apparently that's a big problem, but they're finding other ways of doing it. Janice, thank you very much for your call. Sally from Devon, what's your view on wind turbines? Is there must be a lot in Devon?
There's quite a few. Some of my family have them on their farms, and you do have to do surveys, not only about birds but also about bats and things like that. So you do have to have proper surveys done before you can get planning permissions to put it up. A family member of mine put up a wind turbine just for the use of their farm. Basically, it's a medium-sized one. And so we had a lot of people both for wind turbines and against wind turbines come along to see this turbine, and my dad took someone out to show him this turbine, and he says, "Oh, does it affect the birds? Do they like the noise?" At this point, a tame pigeon flew down and walked between their legs, and he said, Dad said, "Oh, it didn't seem to upset him." And he said, no,
Okay.
but do you think he's deaf? He said.
Well, we don't know, Sally, but it sounds like if they've had to put things in place and consult people about the wildlife surrounding them, they've done all the mitigating factors that they possibly can. And maybe that's what we need. We just need more research into what things we can do to minimise the amount of damage that it has in all the wildlife. Sally, thank you very much for that. Annie from Devon, what's your view on them?
I don't particularly like them.
Okay.
I feel that we are an island nation and we could have the use of hydroelectric power from the sea. I think maybe that should be looked into more and maybe investigated what would be better. The other thing that I don't like about the turbines is that, yes, there are times when they will injure and kill wildlife. Is it necessary? No, I don't think it is. They're not that effective. Also, when you get a turbine farm, the land underneath it gets very cold. It's cool. You can't use that land. It's obsolete for growing.
Did not know that, Annie. That's really, really interesting, because I always thought you could farm the land around it, but that would make sense because the wind would constantly be swirling around. But you make some really, really good points. The hydro point I thought would be brought up a lot earlier. And yes, every time we do something on wind turbines or renewable energy, we always get callers in saying, why aren't we using hydro? We're an island. It seems the most logical thing. And honestly, I haven't found an answer for it. But thank you very much for bringing up all those points. We are going to have to move on because we're racing towards the end of the show.